What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And as you all know, I will be continuing my series today on my predictions for this upcoming NHL season of 2021-2022. So to kick off the Central Division, this video will be covering the Arizona Coyotes. But since this is a brand new division we are covering, we are going to tee up the Central Division just like we did for the Pacific. Looking at this Central Division, it is much tougher and much more competitive than the Pacific is. But much like the Pacific, there is one team in particular that I feel is a legitimate powerhouse, but I still feel like the majority of these teams are pretty strong, and the race for the playoffs I think is wide open for a lot of these teams. So this division consists of the lone Canadian team, the Winnipeg Jets. We got the Minnesota Wild, the Chicago Blackhawks, the St. Louis Blues, the Nashville Predators, the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, and of course, the newest addition to this division, the Arizona Coyotes. So where does this Coyotes team fit in this Central Division? Let me give you a quick rundown here. So over the course of the last 5 seasons, the Arizona Coyotes were a team that was slowly trying to trend in the right direction. However, over these last few years, they've really been struggling to get on mediocrity, and this past season was no different. So looking at their stats from last season, they finished with a 24, 26, and 6 record for a total of 54 points, which was only good enough for 5th in the West Division, falling short of the playoffs. Taking a look at their offensive stats, they averaged a 2.68 goals for per game, which ranked 23rd in the NHL, and a 20.8 power play percentage, which ranked 13th in the NHL. And looking at their defensive stats, they averaged a 3.11 goals against per game, which ranked 22nd in the NHL, and an 80.8% penalty kill percentage, which was tied for a solid 11th in the NHL. So looking at their special team stats, honestly was pretty respectable, but in terms of their offensive and defensive stats, below average at best. Yet again, this was a team that really struggled to take the next step and be a consistent playoff team, and this team was heavily carried by their goaltending, as Darcy Kuemper did everything he could, but once again, they fell short of the playoffs. Taking a look at their top 5 scorers from last season, their leading scorer being Phil Kessel with 20 goals and 23 assists for 43 points in a full 56-game season. Kessel, who was coming off a miserable first year in the desert, definitely bounced back for a 20-goal season. Pretty solid for Phil Kessel. Then we have Jacob Chychrun in second, who scored an incredible 18 goals and 23 assists for 41 points for the defenseman. He's a great young defenseman who had an amazing breakout season, and he's definitely going to be a cornerstone piece for the Coyotes' future moving forward. Then in third, we have Conor Garland, who scored 12 goals and 27 assists for 39 points in just 49 games. Garland was probably the most consistent Coyote forward last year, but obviously injuries derailed him a little bit. And fourth, we got Clayton Keller, who scored 14 goals and 21 assists for 35 points. Keller is still relatively young and can still get better, but ever since his rookie season, he hasn't really been able to get back to where he once was, and it just looks like he's been trending in the wrong direction offensively. And then in fifth, we have Nick Schmaltz, who scored 10 goals and 22 assists for 32 points. Nick Schmaltz honestly is relatively solid for a middle 6 center. Not going to wow you with his offensive skill, but I feel like he can still contribute pretty well to any winning team. And in goal, we have Darcy Kuemper, who played 27 games with a 10, 11, and 3 record, a 2.56 goals against average, and a 907 save percentage. Not the greatest year by Kuemper by any means, but at the same time, he really was let out to dry once again. If it wasn't for their amazing goaltending, this Coyotes team would easily be much worse. They're a below average offensive team, not really a great defensive team either. Really, their goaltending was carrying them throughout these past few years. Now moving forward, things have obviously changed. Entering this season, it seems pretty clear that the Coyotes have had the most turnover of any team. And you look at what they added compared to what they lost, this obviously is a much weaker team. By adding Shane Gostisbehere, who was really falling off a cliff in Philadelphia over these past few years, and adding Carter Hutton, who's a below average backup goaltender at this point. Comparing to what they lost, Conor Garland, who was a very solid top 6 forward, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, their captain, their best defenseman, Goligoski, a very solid offensive defenseman at this stage of his career, Antti Raanta, and Darcy Kuemper, both of their goaltenders. This is a team to me that's obviously rebuilding again because things didn't quite work out, and now they're moving in a Central Division where it didn't look like they were going to compete anyway. I can definitely see a scenario where they send off more assets to get even worse, and they can honestly truly tank for a number 1 overall pick. So if all these guys are healthy, these are my predictions to who I feel are going to be the top 5 scorers on the Arizona Coyotes this season. First, we have Phil Kessel, who I have scoring 26 goals and 30 assists for 56 points. The bounce back season that Kessel had last year really tells me that there's still a ton of offense that he has left in the tank. He should still be good to score around 20-25 goals at the very least. All around, he's just a very good offensive forward, a very solid goal scorer, and an underrated playmaker as well. Second, I have Clayton Keller scoring 21 goals and 33 assists for 54 points. Now, since Keller's production has fallen off since his rookie season, it might be a hot take to assume that he can score more than 50 points. And honestly, I look at all the pieces that were sold, and this could be a huge opportunity for Clayton Keller to show that he can be the guy for this Coyotes team moving forward. He's obviously a guy who's going to get a ton of opportunity and a ton of ice time on a Coyotes team that's starting from scratch, basically. And in third, I have Jacob Chikrin scoring 16 goals and 28 assists for 44 points. Chikrin erupted last year with a great breakout season for the Coyotes on the blue line, and I don't know why that shouldn't continue. And in fourth, I have Nick Schmaltz scoring 13 goals and 29 assists for 42 points. Honestly, there's not much to say about him, but he's a solid middle six winger, and he probably should contribute about 40 points for the Coyotes. And in fifth, I have Christian Dvorak scoring 17 goals and 19 assists for 36 points. Honestly, he's a decent piece, and although I don't see a ton of upside, I think he's still pretty decent to play on a third line for most teams. Now I would look for him to be traded at some point this season because he's definitely been in a lot of rumors as a guy potentially on the move. So now getting into what I expect for this team entering this season. Seeing that this team is starting a rebuild once again, this team is going to be very awful, especially in a tougher Central Division. I don't see him really competing at all. So with that, I have him finishing dead last in the Central Division with a 27, 46, and 9 record for a total of 63 points, and they will not be making the playoffs. Given the moves they made this offseason, this is clearly a team that's trying to tank for a #1 overall pick, and it's obvious to me that they're probably going to be a bottom 3 team in the NHL this season. I mean, their goaltending downgrade alone, losing Ranta and Darcy Kemper, is a huge loss for them. Honestly, that goaltending tandem was the only reason, in my opinion, why this Coyotes team was even competitive and relevant. Now you lose both of them, they're not even going to be coming close to a playoff spot. Sorry to the Coyotes fans out there, but I think they're in for a rough season. This just looks like a team with not a lot of talent right now, and they're definitely looking to get worse before they get better again. So hopefully the lottery balls fall their way, and they get a chance at drafting Shane Wright, maybe even Connor Bedard in the following draft. That's going to wrap up this video and my expectations for the Arizona Coyotes going into this season. Please let me know your thoughts and where you think this team stands. Think they're going to tank for #1 overall pick like I do? Or do you think there's still a chance that they actually could compete for a playoff spot? Let me hear it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Click like if you liked it, and please consider subscribing to this channel. Go check out my other videos that I posted in this series. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. See you guys later.